I do have Nortey Dua back on Skype. He's a clinical psychologist and also host of Ultimate Health on Joy 99.7 FM. He's also a part of the group that led, stigmatization talks, I should say, during the HIV and AIDS time. I think I missed it a bit out on that, but let's go straight to Nortey, who we had earlier. Nortey, you were answering some question for me earlier as to what sort of story the media should tell. We should lay bare the facts, or should we just try and focus more on not creating fear?
Right. Is it line better now?
Yes, it sounds better.
Okay, right. So what I was saying essentially is that we have a duty to cover all aspects of this story, okay? And that involves or includes laying bare the facts and the details to empower the people responding and also empower the people who are at the end of the response chain. Now, what I also said earlier was that when you use threatening content to trigger or facilitate behavioral change. So if I show you the danger you are in, the expectation is that you move towards protective behavior.
Yeah.
And what I was adding is that when you do that and you add information that enhances a person's efficacy or their capacity to take preventive or protective behavior, then the message works. So if you frighten me, but you show me how I can avoid the threat, with good content, then you are doing a good job and you will achieve the behavioral change we're talking about. I hope that point is clear.
It is.
Yes. So if we show what happens and how bad it is in other countries, yes, we show the effectiveness of social distancing, the effectiveness of hand wash protocols, etc. Alongside that, what we're doing is that we're telling you what is bad, just like showing you a bad, gory road traffic accident, but we're also showing you how effective it is to wear your seatbelt. So in this COVID era, that is what we're trying to do. The media has to show some of these things, yes, but we must give, should I say, equal emphasis to the preventive, health promotive information and measures that people can take to avoid spreading this disease and to avoid complicating matters for our fragile health infrastructure.
Now, the latest angle to this story has been the recoveries. And of course, all of us are excited about that. We're told that we've done 50,000 tests and 641 have been confirmed positive. 83 of these people have recovered, which we're all excited about. From where you sit, should we focus on the recoveries and show people that, look, this is not a do or die affair? Like, you can actually recover. People have died, but you can't actually recover. Okay. Or do you think that focusing on that angle to let people see less danger will actually jeopardize our efforts to make people act the way we want them or they ought to act? Right, Gifty. Like I mentioned, we have a critical obligation to discharge, which is we must educate, inform, and in many ways transform the public and the listening public. So look at it this way. We're getting recoveries. And today you saw at the press conference, I think a gentleman called Fred shared his story. Okay? Right. On my end of it, this is called disclosure, right? He's disclosed his identity and he's sharing his story. So we have what we call facilitated or assisted disclosure. Okay. Such that the person who discloses must be perceived by the public to achieve a positive end. Okay. So if after disclosing we find out that people are stigmatizing Fred more, then we haven't harnessed the disclosure and the positive aspect of his story. Yeah. I hope you're getting the point. Yes, I do. So the idea is that we need to put a face to the problem. We need to get people to see and understand their personal risk. How different am I from Fred? How did he get it? And what was the outcome for him? So Fred's story is critical and pivotal in the sense that it shares the fact that we do have response capacity. He did report and he did get support and treatment. Yeah. And he is better for it. And he's sharing his story. Where we keep it at the point of nameless statistics, and I'll come to the statistics in a bit. Right. People don't
take ownership of the risk. And we've been seeing people going to the beach, people flouting the directives and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And you did mention that way back in 2011, I was part of a project we called Heart to Heart. And many of you may know that Ghana has HIV ambassadors.
Mm-hmm.
The idea behind this project was that we needed to put a face to the HIV campaign and get people to be able to translate this into their own personal risk with ambassadors whose stories they can identify with. So we had persons who've have had children, though they are HIV positive, so that tells the story of mother-to-child transmission and its prevention and so many other things. So in the same way with COVID, now we need to help the persons who recovered disclose in a manner that can be harnessed positively for this country to show that if we follow these things, these are the dividends that a country can yield. So yes, it's good. And I heard my colleague, Dr. Ama Edwin, this morning sharing on the AM show how we can use this to beat stigma. And then you just played the little boy who was sharing how his auntie shop is being, should I say, avoided by people, and the way people are, mocking them and so on. Once we get ambassadors and persons who have been assisted to disclose and share, and we make sure that the message is clear and they do not experience any negative outcome after sharing, then we are beating down the walls of stigma. Essentially, stigma is marking something in a negative way to be able to pull away from it or to shun it. So we want now to use these people as a critical, should I say, tool in the fight against COVID.
And just a question I want to put in there, Nortey, is that when we avoid nameless statistics because we want to deal with the stigmatization, we want to also look at the context. It looks to me like HIV is in a league of its own, and so is coronavirus. Coronavirus is different in the sense that with HIV, people have to live a lifelong, the entire life on drugs, on antiretroviral drugs. And are we able to compare that to coronavirus, which, as we know, we're still learning more about, but which also you can be treated and discharged, like people have just been made to go home?
Right. So, Gipti, let me help you connect the dots, and I hope it helps our viewers as well. Listen, when we started with HIV in the mid to late 80s, we were getting it from, as we call it now, imported cases, persons who had a history of travel, right? Okay. And because it was related to sexual activity and so on and so forth, we started judging the people and shunning them. So you traveled maybe to Ivory Coast or here, there, and we thought it was a disease of the prostitutes or this and that, okay? So we had the same trajectory as we're having now. We didn't know about it. Okay. We feared it, and we pushed it away from us, okay? Gradually, as we gained capacity, knowledge, insight, and, we started developing antiretrovirals and so on and so forth, we now have to move away from just sheer fear-oriented content to getting people to understand how HIV is transmitted, getting people to understand what you can do to protect yourself, getting people to understand what high-risk behavior is. And then we moved to a point where now we could actually, announce HIV ambassadors, persons who are now willing to say, I am HIV positive. So we can draw the similarities and join the dots. So now we started with a disease in Wuhan, far away, and people thought it wouldn't get to Ghana. We prayed it wouldn't get here. So we thought about foreigners, persons with travel history. Now we've got horizontal transmission. So community spread is here. And we've now got to use these, stigma-busting strategies to get people to comply and to support the effort and the battle against COVID. So yes, once we have disclosure and people are sharing, then it becomes easier to see that, oh, I know this guy. Or, he looks like a regular guy. Yeah. And he's not afraid. I get it. I will also not hide it or run away from quarantine. I'll go into the process and be able to access the resources that we are touting Ghana as having. So that's the important, link between these conditions and the strategies that we can use to trigger behavior change.
Okay, so two quick things before you go, and these are things that I understand you've been doing some work on as well. First has to do with our testing. I just spoke to, this morning we had a briefing on the testing. We're told that we've done 50,000 testing. I just spoken to Dr. Amoisi, who also indicates that, well, this is a good thing. We shouldn't doubt our system. What we should doubt, perhaps, I mean, not that we should doubt, but there are some, there ought to be a system for the samples when they are taken, etc., which is non-existent, but we shouldn't doubt our system. The Ghana Health Service says, the director of the Ghana Health Service says this is the second best on the continent and 14th in the world. Is this incredible performance, you'd call it, or since you've been doing some work on it, your perspective?
Gifty, let me say that nobody is averse to celebrating our achievement. This is about our country. This is about Ghanaian lives. So that is not the question at all. Okay? So if we have done 50,000 plus tests, and I'm emphasizing the word test, not samples. Okay? This is very important. If we collected 50,000 plus samples and some are yet to be declared, and we use that ratio to calculate our success or achievement, it could be problematic. So all I would say is that let's be clear that our response, our test capacity tells us, for example, we've had a press conference today which declared 50,000 plus tested. If we have a press conference tomorrow which declares 70,000 tested, the important critical question to ask is, do our test facilities have the capacity to have tested 20,000 in 24 hours? I hope you're getting the point.
Okay, so
right? So
if you can go over that again, I think I get it, but make it a bit clearer for me.
Okay, basically we're looking for an understanding, right? We've tallied ourselves and we say Ghana stands this high in terms of tests done, and then of course the rate or the case count. That's okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Now I'm saying that we've been following and we've been building capacity to test more. Now, I think if you look at the dates, 9th, 10th, and 11th April, we've had a couple of press conferences, and in each of them, there are big jumps in the number of tests we say we have done.
Okay.
That is fine. So long as these are declared and they are actually tests done and not the number of samples we've taken. Because what it means is that if it is the samples taken, then it means that we still have some to be tested based on our capacity. But if we have done the 50, we collected 50,000 plus test samples and we've tested them, and this is our performance, my goodness, Ghana is exceptional and we're doing great, and I would applaud that. But we do have to ask these questions because we were asking about our capacity. So Dr. Amoisi mentioned that they just received 2,000 or so odd samples. How long will it take them to process and declare those? Such that if we have a press conference and we say we've added those 2,000, everybody knows that the calculation, or as somebody would say, the fundamentals are right. So I'm very, very happy with what we're seeing, the recovery. And if I may, Gifty, a little word on the recoveries. The CDC has what it calls discharge criteria. And so we make sure we do these things before we discharge people. And I'm glad we're doing that, okay? And there are also protocols for recovered persons to follow. Let's make sure that recovered persons are following these protocols alongside the CDC criteria.
All right.
So that we don't get some of the upsets that other countries are getting with reinfection.
Yeah, yeah. All right, and then the next thing I wanted to end with is I'm also told that you've done a bit of work on. I asked Dr. Amoisi again whether now that we're told some samples or some traces of the disease are found in the stool of people who have actually recovered, whether it's possible to find any of these traces as well in, say, sperms or other human discharges. He didn't have the answer. He indicated that, but you've done some work around this?
Let me say I've done some reading and I've spoken, I do ultimate health. I've spoken with the virologist. You probably have hosted Dr. Bertha Ai in the US.
Okay, we haven't done that.
And I've asked her specifically about, but we've been speaking to her, I think, on other platforms.
Right.
And the thing is that you find in discharge criteria the caution about potential transmission or, should I say, carriage of the virus in fecal matter. And so that is why when you are even self-quarantining and so on and so forth, they suggest and they insist that you should have different facilities, if it is possible, for your personal hygiene when you use the toilet and so on and so forth. Okay, these are concerns. It is not the same as saying, and it's not my field of specialization to say that there is actual, right? But if you check the discharge criteria, these are cautions that are raised, and I do believe that Ghana is following them. Okay, and that is why he answered the question. I think he answered it to the best of his ability.
Yes, he did.
And I think when you have the virology, you can clarify. But we must look to criteria and the experience of other countries so that we can, should I say, observe the cautions that they have. And he mentioned absolute caution, and I think he's spot on when he says that. So let's be cautious. Even if you have recovered, follow the protocols that you've been given. And he also mentioned the resource constraints, that we can't afford to be using tests to be testing people who we think are okay. So we are not able to follow best practice. But at least the caution is that these persons must also help us to maintain the disease-free status and protect everybody else.
Nortey, thank you so much this afternoon for this comprehensive responses that you've given to our questions. I certainly will be engaging you more if you're available on this show.
Workers and everybody who's part of this response, including the media.
Right. Nortey Dua is a clinical psychologist. He also hosts Ultimate Health on Joy FM, talking to us about a range of issues, I should say, especially stigmatization, which has been one of the biggest problems. We want people to recover, but when they recover, we're not happy to take them back in. And that's a problem we try to address with